Hey guys, welcome to FanCast. Here we are, another live stream in the lead up to another week of exciting finals football. We're going to be covering last week's game as well as hyping up. We don't need to do much hyping for this week. This week is going to be absolutely insane. It's your boy Joe. Got Jez. How's it going, Jez?
I'm good.
Very good. And of course, Big Swizz. How's it going, mate?
Big Swizz, love it. No, I'm good, Joe. Good to see you again. Haven't seen you for a few weeks, mate.
It has been a while.
And even with you, Big Joe, been at the footy. First week, I'm not at the final, so just here to talk Man City. We're flying at the moment, top of the Premier League. Apparently, there's AFL going on. Wouldn't have a clue about that sort of stuff, but
mate,
I thought...
I'm in orange fever. You're in blue. I'm in orange fever. I don't have any high vis on me, given my line of work, but I'm trying to rep the orange as much as possible, and I've got orange shoes. I am fully on board the GWS train after what the amount of, adversity that these guys have had to overcome in order to get to where they are. 11 different venues. They don't give a crap where they have to play. They're going to get the job done. Are you excited about this week, Jez?
It's one of the few times I've remembered in a final series where each of the games has actually come down to the wire, where I can't really pick, okay, Brisbane's going to go and slaughter North Melbourne. We're lucky that we made the semi-finals, but we're just going to get beat. Like, anyone can win any time, and it's really fun to see.
Because these games last week absolutely were down to the wire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've been to 3 of the finals so far. Melbourne, Collingwood, very good final. D's kicked themselves out of it, and that's no disrespect to Collingwood because they were 4 or 5 goals up most of that game, and Melbourne was just coming, but Melbourne should have put themselves in a better position there, and then same again last week in what was one of the worst finals of footy I've seen. It was just turnover city, but Carlton held their nerve longer, but that was some of those mistakes and errors that Melbourne made. It's going to be a very tough pre-season and off-season for them. And it'll be one or two things, some teams can hit back hard and Melbourne could just rip this 2024 season a new one, or they might have some real demons from that, and it could, no pun intended there, but they could be one of those teams that just massively slide because it might be hard for them to get over that sort of loss. But credit to the Blues, they're there. Driving my train around today, there was the first passenger had a Collingwood scarf, and after that it was all Carlton colours.
Yeah.
Carlton supporters everywhere.
Yeah, out of the woodworks.
Good on them. You got to enjoy it. I'm sure if the Bombers ever make it again, they'll and win a final. You'll see some Essendon supporters in their red and black. They'll have to they might have to go out and buy some new merch.
Mate, it's coming soon. It's coming.
I can understand the Carlton supporters getting up and about, and if they were to get up this week or next week, you wouldn't want to go near Lygon Street ever again. Like that, they'll burn that place to the ground in celebrations.
Well, they're going to have to do it the hard way because they're going to be going up to Brisbane at the Gabatoir, where the Brisbane Lions are undefeated. But you spoke about the Demons last week and how they kicked themselves out of the competition. Look, obviously, massive kudos to Carlton for getting to where they are right now. But let's be real, that should not have been a Carlton win last week. They killed themselves, the Demons. The Demons in front of goals continue to riddle them. They can't kick a winning score to save their life. They're too reliant on their defence, which is wonderful. But honestly...
Yeah, Stephen May was by far the best player on ground.
Yeah.
But I think Voss completely outcoached Goodwin.
Doesn't take much.
And it doesn't. And it was like, I don't know if they couldn't get over the fact that they knew Grundy's leaving. So, but he was, if it wasn't going to go a runner, if you're picking a tall, where did the Shaki pick come from? That was just the most ridiculous pick out there. And then to not even give him a run, even you go back a couple of years ago, the grand final when Jordan didn't get to come on. And they could have not found a fake injury or something just to give the guy a run. And then Friday night just showed, Carlton picked Hollins. Voss put him in the game at that crucial moment, and he had an impact. It helped them win the game, especially in that last play. Takes a really good mark, gets it onto Doherty, who credit to Sam Doherty playing out that game with that shoulder. He was gone for all money at halftime.
That he was.
And then that kick and... down to Akers, who's been a brilliant pickup from Fremantle. So well done to all those players involved.
And he's also playing with a bunged up shoulder too.
Exactly. So credit to him. And I think that's going to probably come back to bite them this week. But that's footy. That's how it goes.
A win with heart. That was a win,
exactly.
just pure heart.
Where
and Melbourne just didn't seem to have that.
Melbourne didn't have a forward line set up. They got Shaki sitting there. Like, even at some point, don't you pull the trigger and go, let's try it. Let's see if something can happen. Or even bring Shaki and throw him in the ruck, put Gawn at full forward, put Gawn at centre half back. Like, there was so many moments and so many plays that Goodwin from the coaching box could have made and didn't. And, they pay the price. So I put it, as much as the players are out there, there was just a lack of coaching, like, just so rigid, and we'll just let the game keep playing out how it is. And, where you could see the Voss and his team were trying to make moves to win that match.
It really felt like Melbourne was way too reactionary. I remember from the first game where the commentators were talking about how Max Gawn would just get the ball and just bomb it long. Like, that's literally, I think he had something like 15 kicks, one handball, right? And then in the second game, he completely stopped and was just handballing everything and just didn't kick anything. I mean, like, just stuff like that. You're a premiership level team. You've got that much quality. Play to your game. Don't play to the opposition. But work out what your mistakes are, right? The preseason game, the game before this one, when they lost out as well, they couldn't kick in front of goal. And then, again, they can't kick in front of goal. Surely you just get all your players who are supposed to kick goals. Hey, today we're just kicking. Tomorrow we're just kicking. Take those extra 30 seconds. Don't try and do a snap kick so you can look good. Yeah, I've just kicked the goal. Rev up the crowd. Mate, you try and do that. Fritsch is missing 5. Cozzy Pickett's missing 10. And then that's it. The game's over.
I'll say something on that, Jez. That game, I've never seen so many players kick a goal and then turn to the crowd and hype up the crowd that I've seen in any other game. And that was from both Carlton and Melbourne. And I know about getting the supporters involved. But usually you still get the odd player that most players will turn around, go to their teammates, high-five them. Mm-hmm. But every player, every goal that was kicked, it was straight to the boundary, and it was either give it to the opposition or hype up your own supporters.
People want highlights reels.
I've never seen anything like that in that particular
Soccer style.
match. It was. Very much was. And it came back to bite Melbourne because, there was a bit of that even when they'd actually missed and they thought they were, kicking. It was kind of like this whole psychological thing where, I'm just going to be here. As you said, highlights reel instead of worrying about what you need to do. And you'll see a very different match tonight with Collingwood GWS because two very disciplined teams.
Yeah.
Play a little bit similar. Like, they'll have that run off the half back. And it's one of these matchups that I'm so glad it is Collingwood GWS. Probably the only thing would have been maybe slightly better if it was at Giants Stadium because Collingwood's probably the more stronger team and it's probably going to maybe be a bridge too far. But as you said, the Giants have been winning everywhere and it seems to not to worry them.
I'm almost convinced that Melbourne hate their own supporters at this point. Like, I'm almost convinced that Melbourne is like, hey, we want a flag, but guess what? It was in WA. You guys couldn't come and see it. We'll come back to Victoria. We'll carry a dynasty. We'll get to just within 1 inch. We'll do all the hard work, get to in front of goal, and then miss everywhere and avoid winning. It's almost like to spite their supporters, which is ridiculous. I would hate to be a Melbourne supporter.
Got to get Ben Brown back. I know he's got no knees and everything, but he's the saviour of their grand final. Without him, without Van Ruin, They almost need to go and draft a key forward.
They've got young Jefferson in there. So they've got Jefferson and JVR.
Yes.
So the future is actually bright. But the problem with Melbourne is that their time is now. You've still got Gawn probably good for another year or two. They would have hoped that it would be Grundy sticking around and replacing him, but Gawn's still going to football. May, Lever, still in their primes. Like, May's one of the best backmen in the league.
Yeah.
Got Clary, Petrarca, Viney, Brayshaw.
They still have time, though.
But we're talking...
Not like they're retiring next year.
No, but it's probably like this 3-year window where they're going to still be at their peak, and then, that natural drop-off is going to come. And the problem is Jefferson's probably 3 or 4 years away. JVR's starting to really show it, but he's probably not going to be the dominant guy for another couple of years. In a perfect world, they really need to trade those guys for like Yalaki or Oscar Allen or that because they're the guys in their prime at the moment. But
I bet they wish they had Jesse Hogan back again.
100%.
Feel like, hey, when he was available again, after leaving Freo, should have given him a contract. Be like, hey, come back to Melbourne. It's okay. We'll look after you. No.
They've done so well getting the best out of him. Yeah. And credit to him too. I think he's changed and enjoy some players. They were talking about this with Grundy.
It's definitely an attitude.
Well, that's it. But they were talking about Grundy sort of choosing Sydney because of more the lifestyle. Some players are addicted to watching all games of footy, going to other games, and that they love it. Other players like Grundy, I know they were sort of Cam Zuher, Danaher.
Nick Larkey's very much
very
like that
much.
too.
They don't want to talk footy outside. They want to worry about their other interests.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Hogan might be a bit like that. He's got out of that limelight. He just does his own thing up in, Greater West Sydney or wherever he's located himself, and then just comes out and just plays footy on the weekend. So, credit to it, and huge win by them last week. Like, I thought they would get Port,
Me too.
But it's probably disappointing. Like, they had those 13 games in a row. Looked really good for a period. Hinkley gets re-signed.
Yeah.
Port's forward line probably just as big of shambles as what Melbourne's is. And it's back to the drawing board for those guys.
Because they're taking out these highly dynamic players that used to be in the forward line. Your Butters and your Rosie, they used to be there. They're now playing higher up the ground.
Yeah.
They brought in Willie Rioli. Now, to be fair, Willie Rioli might have played his best game ever on the weekend when he played against the Giants. Because if he wasn't getting his hands on it, they weren't scoring. He was absolutely at his dynamic best, something that we haven't seen for quite a long time. So well done to him for finally finding that form again. But you're right, they got problems forward of centre, but even before that, they got problems in the centre because there was a period of time there, I think the Giants had over almost 10 clearances in a row, straight out of the middle, and they dominated and just burst the game wide open that second quarter.
I'm going to blame Hinkley again because it's very much he'll back in those guys that he's come through with for such a long time. So Charlie Dixon should have not played at all.
No.
Like, the guy's hanging him by a thread, and I guess he's been my guy and he's a bit of a spiritual leader up there, and if he can get going, but you could just see he's not right. Finlayson has been fantastic. He's been going through hell with his partner and everything. So all credits. And his first half of the season, fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think they did the right thing of leaving him out of that starting side. They had no choice. And I hope that the Finlaysons get through everything that they're going through. But sometimes you need to have that step back and leave it for someone else. Ollie Lords looked really good up there on that. I think he's a bright future for them. But they're trying to correct it, and by bringing in Radigalia, BZT, and Sweet, and maybe even Soldo. But I feel like this has got that whole Rockcliffe, Watts. It's not the
they're trying to top up with these players, and the core's not there yet, and now all the core's retiring too. So going back to stats, I think I'd love to see the stat on Lyset in the team and wins happening because I do not think it is very high. Whenever Lyset's in that team and he's the main ruck, he's falling over, everything's happening, he can't get a hit out, and they just lose games.
Briggs.
Yeah, Briggs is a god.
Kieran Briggs, my man. Obviously, all super coaches out there would be worshipping the ground on which this man walks, but even from a non-super coach, but just looking at the game, Kieran Briggs is the best ruckman in the game.
He was their worst ruckman at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And then he's now their best ruckman.
He's not just their best, he's the best.
I don't know.
Give me a better ruckman.
Best, but
who's better ruckman right now than Kieran Briggs?
I'll sit there and say Gawn, English, Marshall.
No.
Yeah.
How many of them are playing finals right now?
Marshall was nearly best on ground for his final. It wasn't his fault they lost.
Until Kieran
It
Briggs
wasn't his
tore him
fault they
apart.
lost.
Kieran
Just the
Briggs.
rest of St Kilda sucks. So.
Kieran Briggs has absolutely turned the corner of his career. There was obviously some concern about his shoulder, whether or not he'd get up. So he's clearly been named. He's going to be played tonight. So fingers crossed because he's going to play a massive part up against Darcy Cameron and Mason Cox. Hopefully we see something good.
Jabs fix everything.
Jab, a bit of a jab. Don't ask an Essendon supporter. I'll tell you
I'm
all
going to
about
sit
it.
there and say, tonight's really interesting because the Giants won't fear this situation. It's going to be 95,000 people booing when they come out.
Yep.
But they've had this situation against the Tigers a few years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, they've played in these big games. And they seem to do very well against them. They've had a great rivalry with the Dogs in finals. So they're used to playing either at home or away. The Pies are a very, well-coached team. Yeah. And I think, McRae's going to have a couple, cards, aces up the sleeve for that. And it'd be interesting to see where he starts Dacos, what's the sort of matchup around Green and how many people go through him. And even just that sort of forward ruck setup and, is it Cox Cameron, does one get subbed early and how they just sort of go through that? Because we've seen Cox, a couple to finals, he's absolutely torn to pieces and hasn't done much else apart from that. But, it could be potentially like, he puts him in a position where it is back on him. I'm really interested to see how that goes. And then you've got the GWS factor where they've just got superstars everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's, going to be so hard for the Collingwood players to stop them.
Well, it's going to be the Cox-Cameron factor at the start. They're both going to play. They're going to wear down Briggs as much as they can, maybe bash him around a bit. Halfway through the game, Cameron's going to come off, Ginnivan's going to come on, and he's just going to try and win it for him again. That's what they did last week, and it worked. It's going to happen again. 2 versus 1 rucks is really good. If your ruckman's the one out of the two, then better make sure they can cover the positions and do well. But it just wears so much down on the body.
Yeah.
The second half of the game, the fourth quarter, when you're tired, when you're like, man, I've got to come up against another ruck. Mason Cox, he's not a great forward, but he's a fantastic tap ruckman, and he's got the capacity and the strength
He's so tall.
to push. That's what I'm saying. He's got the capacity and the strength to push the opposition ruckman out of the way. He does that in the forward line versus defenders, but when you're that physical against the main ruckman of an opposition team, they just get weird.
If they don't get an injury, it works really well because, as you said, Cameron can go bash his body around for 2.5 quarters. Cox can play forward, and then Cox can go in, and he can be quite dominant against a ruckman who's tired out for that game. But if they lose a Dacos or a Moore who are coming in with those injury clouds early, and all of a sudden they've got to play Cameron and Cox the entire game, I think that does change their setup. And I'd like, without not having the stats in front of me, I'd like to know actually how well they've done and how and the Pies have won a lot of close games, but how many of those games where Cox and Cameron have had to play the entire game where they've only just escaped or they have actually lost.
Well, I mean, that kind of thing happened with Port Adelaide, the first game that they played, where they did the medical sub. Yeah, cool, we're doing that. And then 2 seconds later, 2 other players got injured. No more sub, no more anything. We're down by 2, and then we just lose out of endurance.
That is luck, though, that you cannot, you can't, work around that, play around it, make plans. You just can't. We know what Collingwood are going to do. They're going to back their system. They're a very well-oiled machine. They've been in clutch situations so many times. And I think Craig McRae is going to have to absolutely give one of the best quarter-time speeches of all time. Because...
Quarter time or half time or 3/4 time?
Quarter time. Because the Giants' second quarters are unreal. It's the second quarter burst that the Giants have that they just tear the game apart. They put out that lead and they maintain that lead for the rest of the game. You look at the game last week, it was 4-1 to 4-4 in the Giants' favour. The second quarter was where all the damage was done. They kicked 5-7 to 1-5. Now, for the rest of the game, it was very even. They just kept them at bay. 2 goals to 3 goals, 2 goals to 1-9. So the Port were very inaccurate in the last quarter, but they're a very good team to watch. They will give you chances, though, because they play such an offensive style. They don't like to play keepings off. They like to attack. They find space where you think there isn't any. And I cannot think of a team, apart from Richmond, that are so good at just tapping the ball on to a teammate. They're in trouble, they'll just tap it on, free the next person, and off they go. But that will also give Collingwood a chance to counter-attack as well. And Collingwood play very fast. These two play very similar to each other. It's going to be absolutely incredible to watch how these two teams will go at each other. McRae and Kingsley, both graduating from the Dimmer Hardwick School of Coaching. They were both together during the last premiership that the Tigers won as different coaches.
There's so much in that, and I'm kind of glad we've got Uze now. We can touch on that in a minute, but it's shown in the past that coaches they come from these setup like Clarko. How many of those coaches, Dimmer and Fags, Bevo. I'm not too sure. Did Simpson spend time there? Yeah. So
it's the Bobby Hill Cup.
But so many of those assistants turn out to be really good coaches because they've come from such a masterful coach there. It's no difference with Lee Matthews and then Malthouse before that, Sheedy. So you're learning from the best.
Yeah.
But they create. They're not just great coaches of players. They're great coaches of other coaches and develop them. So. Yeah, that's where I'm glad for sort of where we've gone with that because Uze's been a successful club under Clarkson and then also being part of Melbourne too. So I'm glad he got an opportunity and there's no wouldn't be surprised if it'd be similar to what McRae and Kingsley are doing, who have been incredible for their clubs.
Uze's been so close so many times. You can't be consistently getting to that last hurdle of getting that job and just falling short. It was a question of when, not if, for Uze. So he's finally got the monkey off the back. He's finally landed that head coaching position that he has craved for so long. It's at a big, powerful club. Your boys, the Richmond Tigers, who I'm not sure how many people are, optimistic for what you guys have to show next year. But that's a discussion for another time. Best of luck to him. We obviously have much more pressing football conversations, and that is this week's game, tonight's game, Collingwood versus the Giants. Two very similar teams, two coaches who have come from the same club, from the same coach who's trained them. Who gets the job done? I'm Team Orange. I'm Team Giants. I love the Giants. They're my second favourite team. It's official. I love their song, Big Sound. I'm backing them in. $2.41 according to Sportsbet.
Gamble responsibly.
Gamble responsibly. If you're going to gamble, gamble responsibly. I'm going Giants. Giants in a close one. I'm going Giants by 7 points.
My brain says Collingwood. My heart says GWS. I love the big sound, like you're saying. They've got the stars across the board. I just think Collingwood's going to take it. I 100% want GWS. But my brain is just saying Collingwood, if you had to bet your life on it, I think Collingwood's too good. And, yeah, they're just going to take it home.
Yeah. I'm similar. Like, I really would love to see the Giants and the Blues get up just to shove it up my co-hosts, Supercoach Insider there with Chris and Ben, who are probably tuned into this. So I think in the perfect world, if it's not Brisbane, it's more the grand final I want. So it's either the Brisbane GWS grand final, or if Collingwood win, then I want Carlton getting up tomorrow night and be the Carlton-Collingwood. So I don't want the in-between. I want the two Northerners, and that probably allows me to go to the game. But Carlton-Collingwood would be awesome to watch as well. And I'd probably hope that Carlton get up over them if that was the case. But I think my brain is saying Collingwood in a close one. And then tomorrow night, it's the Lions should do Brisbane easy, but I think there's a little bit more to that if we want to move on to chatting about that game, mate.
Yeah, you say should, and then I'm the opposite. It's everything stacked for the Lions to win. Amazing thing to do at home. Everything's happening, and then I look at Carlton. I'm like, Carlton's just, if they come out, their fans don't count. They don't care. If we're losing, they'll still go and cheer and they'll turn up to games. So I reckon they're the ones that are going to come out and, I'm always going to say, before we talk about the game, I think Brisbane's going to win, but my heart's telling me Carlton. As much as I hate you, as much as I love seeing Carlton fans, and congratulations to the fans, right?
Oh, yeah.
They will finish this game tomorrow and be happy either way of the result, because they've gone from not making finals, years and years and years of shit, to now actually making finals, going really close, and, it's a happy season for them. But, yeah, if my heart's saying Brisbane's going to win, my head's saying Carlton's going to win.
I think it's a case of if Akers and Doherty weren't banged up from the game before, I'd be more confident in Carlton, especially with Payne out. I think that's a massive loss because it's really got to change their structure now with Harry Mackay coming back. So does Harris Andrews go to Mackay? Does he go to Charlie Curnow? Curnow has done really bugger all for the last 2.5 games. He won the Coleman and has been barely cited. He's played a role, but is that just because McKay or that? But you'd expect, compared to, say, a Walsh, who just has stood up during finals and been amazing. And that's what they, when players get the opportunity, do they stand up at this time of the year? And Sam Walsh has gone, I am a finals player.
Oh, yeah.
And has proven that. Charlie Curnow, we haven't seen it. Now, he's got a massive opportunity this week if it's, say, a Leicester, or if Harris Andrews goes straight to Mackay. So he's getting a Leicester or Starcevic or somebody of a lesser quality. Or no, Darcy Gardner's the one that they brought in. So so there's a real opportunity there for Curnow to have a massive game. And really stamp his authority. So if he was to get 5 or 6, or if he gets on a roll early where then they've got to make the move and put Andrews on there, then it's up to Harry Mackay to stand up and him get his 3 or 4 against Gardner. And if they do that, they're a massive chance of winning.
We know it's going to happen.
There's no... Darcy Gardner's, he's an experienced player.
He's
He's
a
played over
respectable
100
player.
games. Like
Yeah.
he's not a world beat. He's played 2 or 3 games this year. But this is why you've got depth in clubs. This is what the good sides have. They'll have a
just
player
has
that
to-
comes in
yeah.
and plays his role. No different like Collingwood. You know, Markov's come in, played his role as keeping Noble out of the side. Like these good teams, and Richmond had it through their time, Hawthorn as well, where it's not just about your best 22, but it's your best 30. And these players from 23 to 30 can come in at any time and play a big moment. And I think Darcy Gardner could do that. The problem is that if he does that and then Payne's fit the next week, they're going to have a big selection call up there.
You bring Payne in.
Well, you would, of course. That's just the unlucky part of footy. But
Yes.
he's got a big opportunity here to, maybe even play himself into a grand final if he was, to keep Curnow goalless and have an absolute blinder.
He just has to play his role. Just don't get beaten one-on-one.
That's right.
Just break even.
Yep.
Just break even. Bring the ball to ground. Let your Kitty Colemans get
And
involved.
they've got to take their opportunities. They're not going to get as many opportunities as they have. Even last week, they didn't, but they took their opportunities. So Curnow and Mackay can't be missing goals from 10 metres out.
Oh, my
and that they've got to just be on from moment one. Or the Lions, you can't let them get 2 or 3 goals up at home because the game will be over.
Yeah. I mean, it's a thing that we've spoken about off air, Joe, about how everyone in the team should be getting a premiership medal. Doesn't cost the AFL much. But imagine if Gardner comes in and completely nullifies a Curnow or a Harry Mackay and then next week gets dropped. How fair is that for him that he's got the team in there and then he can't compete for the silverware? He doesn't get anything out of the, I was in the premiership team, but I did all this hard work. I got us in there. And I
don't mind. Could it be slightly different? It's this balance. Everybody gets a sticker or
the
sells
Participation
it.
Award.
But
it's not though,
But
because
you are right because some players do play a role, and should it be? Just play, say, if you've played a game throughout the year, maybe somebody who hasn't played a game is a different story. But if you've played at least a game, or because you've played it, maybe contributed
you've
to that.
contributed to the team making
look at Will
finals.
Ashcroft.
You have, yeah.
He's done everything this season, and you go back say Tony Modra, for example, for the Crows was awesome back in the day for them. Unfortunately does his knee in prelim, misses a grand final, deserves to be a premiership player, doesn't get that, but doesn't actually have anything to show for everything he's done for it. So maybe it's a gold one for the winners and they get a silver one or something like that if it's not. Or, as you said, if anybody, as I said before, if anybody's played a game throughout the year, maybe they get it. And they might not get it necessarily on grand final day, but could you do it they get presented to it at the best and fairest or something like that as well.
Be, yeah.
But they still get their medal to show their contribution.
If you're on the list, you get a medal.
I think you've got to play a game.
Yeah. But
not
you
on
do.
the list in general. Come on.
Players do so much behind the scenes.
I get that, but I think
but
you've got to
every
play a
player
game.
does.
I think you've got to play a game in the seniors.
You can't just be a
Yeah.
VFL player
That's
and just
right.
rock up.
Rock up.
I've got a premiership medallion. Okay, it might not be gold.
Yeah.
I've got a bronze premiership medallion.
My team that I'm currently contracted to, my AFL club that I'm currently contracted to, has won the premiership. I get a medal.
No.
Do I get it too
Have you
as an
played a
Essendon
game?
supporter, having Barrack for my team and put all my money
You
in?
can go out and buy a souvenir one. They've got those. You can go and
that's
buy
right.
the
There
fake
we
one.
go.
one
No.
made up.
I've invested time and effort and money and emotional, stress over this. I deserve to have. No. I don't know. It's look, you can open up a can of worms in that. Obviously, that's a big discussion that, the AFL has money for sure, but do they want to do that?
Well, they should.
It's a good debate. It's a good debate.
Yeah.
Is it Brisbane's game? Is it fair to say it's Brisbane's games to lose?
Yes.
So,
100%.
so if Carlton
100%.
win, Brisbane have basically lost, really.
Yeah.
Of course.
Unless, as I said, the only way I think it's a win if Kurnow's had an absolute blinder. If he's come out and kicked 6 or 7, that's not necessarily because of bad Brisbane play. It's just Charlie Kurnow's just absolutely turned it on.
Yeah.
But I think that's more of a case that Brisbane's had to have lost the game and mucked up. But with Dunkley there, Danaher's been playing really well in finals. He's sort of been built for this time of the year as well. I just can't see how the Blues are going to beat them. Yeah, the home factor as well. They don't lose up there very rarely.
Mids. I think it's the mids. We're talking a lot about the back line for Brisbane against the forward line for Carlton. I think it's a bit high. I think the real battle is a bit higher up the ground. I think Brisbane, the big O is going to have his hands full because De Koning has absolutely lifted in this final series into the player that all Carlton faithful hoped that he would be. So he's lifted. He's doing sensational things. Obviously, Pitane, he didn't have a lot of disposals. But what he does in terms of just sheer physicality just makes things a bit easier for his Carlton mids to get their hands on the football. Big O's going to have his hands full.
But Big O's kind of underrated because, like, he's not rated the same as some of those other rucks we talked before because he's not usually a Supercoach selection, and a lot of people focus on that. But he's as solid as they get. He gets the job done each week.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a big body. And he gives his players first use. Like, he'll get that ball down to Neil and Dunkley all night. I think Pitton is a good defensive ruckman, but I'd be backing Big O to able to get on top in that battle.
I think they're much of the same player. They're both not superstar rucks like you'd consider Gorn, all these guys, Tim English.
Draper.
They both play they both play role-playing roles, but they're physical enough that with their elite midfields, they do their job. So it's going to be a really good battle, as you say, to see them versus each other. Two really physical ruckmen. I think I saw this thing with Mark Pitney. It's 140 kilos. Some monster number. This guy's
can't
like,
be 140.
Oh, maybe. But he's a big boy for his size. And same with...
140's NFL, mate. Blocker sort of style there.
No, these guys, when you're close to seven... you don't have to. You're 7 foot tall. You just put your arm up.
Yeah, no, but I see him jumping.
Yeah, maybe.
I've seen it with my eyes, mate.
Maybe. But yeah, just like two really good players who fill roles in their team, who aren't on big money. They're not superstars. It's not like Tim English versus Pitnet, and you'd expect English to dominate for how good of a player he is. Both of them almost cancel each other out, and the ruck battle's going to be really good because whoever wins is the one whose team's probably going to win this weekend.
You make a good point about like the value there and not taking up much cap. That's why I've been big on like the Giants they build. Like a lot of people say they've got too much money in some of their top players, and this is about like but the CBAs came out, and I agree with what some of the people have been saying. Like I know Damien Barrett was big on this, where 25 years ago, like Wayne Carey's the highest paid player in the league. Gets $1 million. This at the moment, the highest paid player in the league is getting about 1.2. The top end players haven't actually increased that much money. What we've seen is a lot of these mid and above average players like Essendon, who have just signed, look like about to sign one, getting massive pay deals, and the gap between them and the top end isn't actually that much. So I like the fact that the Giants have gone and they've got all these A graders. They're paying them $800,000-900,000, and the Blues are the same. The Lions are the same. But then you've got these value guys who are probably only $250,000-300,000.
Yeah,
below the the average wage. They're not paying them overs, but they come in, they get their job done each week, play their role, and then the superstars, they get to work.
Yep.
Damo, thank you so much for tuning in. Love you, mate. Jez, he's a ruckman, not a pass rusher.
That's fine, mate.
Pitto is 107 kilos. I don't know where you're reading 140.
107 kilos.
I get moving on, and I know you want to keep talking Essendon, and we'll have to bring up the trade period just because it's the only way you get to talk Essendon this time of the year. But before we get in that, Brownlow medals on Monday night.
Yes.
You boys got a tip?
It's a good question.
I think Bont wins.
I think
Dacos, before he got injured, was a fair chance. But I think those last few games just allows other people to jump ahead of him.
Yep.
No injury. It's very close, but I think Bont's got it.
I'm going to say Petrarca.
Yeah, I've got Bont. I'm going to go Bont, Dacos, Petrarca as my top three.
Bont carried the Dogs through some of those horrible games.
Yeah, but I feel like in this season, Petrarca's been able to get some shine on there without Clayton Oliver in the team.
Yeah, true.
Taking away his points.
I don't think he's kicked enough goals. I think he's been fantastic, but I don't think he's kicked enough goals to be like, hey, Petrarca's getting 30 touches and 2 goals every week. Like, I just don't think he's done enough for them.
I can't say Bont like you two.
Yes, he can.
No, it'll be too obvious. You're going to have some discussion here.
All right. The big discussion, and outside the CBA finally getting done, and that's obviously going to bode well, not just for the men's, but the women's, and hopefully they're going to get the increased games up to 14 over the next couple of years. But the increase and the changes which have come out of the CBA is the rookie players will end up getting 3-year contracts, which is naturally going to change how we look at the drafting. There's also...
did they change it? I remember there being a thing that was like top, like the first day.
For first round.
Yeah, first round.
First round. Yeah. The other ones are fine though.
Yeah, that's fine. So, and then there'll be some sort of, contract and things put in there where I'm not too 100% sure how it's going to work if they get to negotiate the players or if there's just a standard part for that. So that will be, that's a massive change. We're going to have the mid-season trade period, maybe not as early as next year, but the year after definitely. So that'll probably change how some of the clubs view their lists and how early they might try to get like somebody like a Goldstein, for example, could have been traded much earlier. And I think that's going to open up how clubs who are especially like in that window, how aggressive they are at trying to go for a premiership if they find themselves. And probably the situation we won't get like this year where the Giants and the Blues were 14th and 15th, kind of halfway through the year, and then they get on a roll. Some of those other teams who are at top, if you get that mid-season trade period and they might have had an injury or they're close, maybe like the Bombers at the time where sort of Draper was struggling, they go out and get that ruckman at that, maybe give up an early pick or something because they're like, well, we're actually a chance here.
Yeah.
We're going to...
We could have got Goldie midway through the
Could have got
maybe
Goldie and maybe
St
Mackay then. And
maybe St Kilda actually gets a forward line.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Hey, halfway through, we need someone to kick goals.
They did it at the start of the year almost because they had all their injuries, but they were winning. So it was so bizarre. Like, it made no sense to us.
So they're the big changes that are coming in.
Yep.
So if the AFL, it'll be interesting to see because the AFL hasn't agreed yet or hasn't come out to say, will these changes be as effect right now or we're going to get the trade period next year or the year after? It's the 3 years for the rookies. Because for the rookies, it's going to very much depend on what they do if West Coast take Reid, because the difference of having him for 2 years, 3 years could sway that decision. And same with North Melbourne with Curtin.
He's not going to leave. Once he's locked in, he's locked in.
You said that about Horn-Francis. And,
who?
Nick Minute, I'm off to Port Adelaide.
There is a lot of other trade news going on. So the first big one is, and I know I'm copying a little bit on Twitter about this because I did say 2 years ago that all my source had said, and my source is actually linked to Essendon, was like, Mackay isn't ours. He is definitely going to Hawthorn, but it looks like he's... somebody from his camp put that out a little bit more stronger than what, just to try to get Essendon to bump up their offer, which is well played to them, because if he has got an extra 50K out of their Bombers a year, that's fantastic. But yes, Ben Mackay is going to the Bombers, and that should, which will keep you there happy, Joe, and then Big J, you'll be happy because you'll most likely get pick 3, which is all but locked in now. Everybody wins.
It was locked in anyway.
Well, it should have been, but this doesn't even need the herbs and spices from the AFL.
No,
this is just
the contract. It was never, though, because once you hit like 750K, which was going to happen because 3 teams were offering that much anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it was just going to happen. It's more just which teams are going to go to, what's happening now, blah, 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 blah.
So it's talked, it's either, I believe 6 years, 8 or 850.
I heard it was like 7.
No, I definitely more. Oh, it's what 7?
7 years.
Yeah, 7.
So it is 7. Okay, so that might have been, that could have been the extra negotiation there with the, I'm thinking about going Hawthorn. Well, we'll bump an extra year on there because what I'd heard was the Bombers were at 6.
We needed to do it.
There's no problems with you guys doing it, and you've got salary cap.
Correct.
It's a long time for a guy with bad knees.
Knees. He's played 70 odd games in his career so far.
We'll look after him. He's picked us because he knows he's gonna have a good time with the Bombers. We're on the way up, guys. Take it easy.
Well, you guys are making moves, so there's another deal in the works, and this is, I think, more come from because the behind the scenes news so far is, I was going to say with the Bombers for starters, Dodoro, moving down that sort of part-time role, Roaster coming in from, and I think a lot of Bombers supporters will be happy with that. But then you've got over at St Kilda, Silvani with Gubby over there, and now Silvani was a massive fan of Dylan Shiel. Was when he was at the Giants, then at Carlton tried to get him, ended up choosing to go to Essendon. So he naturally is now very interested about trying to get him over to the Saints. Mm-hmm. Now, how this is going to work is Gresham goes to the Bombers, and there's a couple of different reports going on this, but they are going to try to get him in. The Bombers have salary cap, so we'll be looking at overpaying Gresham somewhere in the tune of maybe 650, 700, whatever might be, again, that herbs and spices to activate St Kilda getting a first-round pick, which would be pick 13, I think, for them in compo. And then, like, it sounds ridiculous for a player who, like Gresham, jury's out, and what sort of role would he play at the Bombers? But this is all part of that,
Probably Snelling's role.
Cobbs,
Snell you later, mate.
working the system. Then in return, the Saints go take Shield, who's on massive money next year. And then so pretty well the money that they're going to spend on Shield, the Bombers, maybe even a little bit more, they're going to spend on Gresham instead. Shield goes to St Kilda in a trade, and then what the Bombers then get back. Now, there's some reports would it be St Kilda's first pick, and then that's all the a bit of that compo pick. Some reports are as far back as the third round, but this is pretty well about getting St Kilda another first round pick in there, and the Bombers getting rid of a Shield who's 30, 31, bad. Foot injury. It's been really struggling. Gun player when he's fit, but I don't think he's coming back anywhere near the player he'll ever be.
Why would St Kilda do this pick?
Because because again, like you guys are letting Mackay go. It's about pick 3. Like if St Kilda are getting a first round pick for this, why? Because Shields only going to be on that 1 year. They probably might give him an extra year or whatever, or however they smooth out this contract and how they do it. But for the Saints, if they can get him right, there's somebody who, if they think they're in some sort of window here, potentially get a good player for at least another year. And if they don't, well, they still get a first-round pick. They're moving on Gresham as it is, because Gresham's normal compo would be, nothing. Like, he's probably a second round at best.
Yeah.
But the Bombers, we'll scratch your back, you scratch ours.
Probably a front-ended deal because we've got the money.
Exactly. So everybody wins out of that situation. Then it depends if the Bombers were to actually get a higher pick back from the Saints. Do they then look like trying to put some picks together to move up? Do the Saints then with pick 12 and 13, if they keep those picks, what do they do and try to get up? It's going to be fascinating, and I think it's added a little bit more spice to the trade period.
Damo here saying, Cal Toomey just reporting that Essendon's contract offer is unknown and may not achieve Band 1 compensation. Hawks and Sydney's offers would have. Not so confident on Essendon's offer.
We'll see.
Now, Cal Toomey is an Essendon man at heart. Do you have to
I feel like it's a slow news week, and trade period's coming up in like 2 weeks, and then clubs are still trying to figure, the AFL media.
He's a bit worried. He's a little bit worried.
You can see it.
I want pick 1. Conference Band 1 wants the compensation.
Clarko said, if it doesn't achieve Band 1, we're going to match.
Of course you are.
Of course you are.
So,
but
you have like pick 6. We'll take your pick 6.
And this is the problem with people with the whole compo situation. And some are saying free agents. You lose a free agent, cool. It's on the club. You don't get compo. It's on the owners to go out and get your own free agent. And the Bombers probably let Parrish go if they know that they're getting Mackay there anyway. If there's no compo involved and then they try to probably use that money to get other areas fixed up to their team. But because, once they're getting Mackay, once that sort of happens and different compensations could happen. And, I think that's, I can see people's issues with it and thinks that it should just be free fall. And then the other issues, like I know a lot of Hawthorn supporters in particular, ever since they got shafted for Buddy because of that pick 19, even though it was Band 1 compo. But the comparison, and this is the hard thing, because Essendon being in the situation they are, where they've got salary cap to spend at the moment, clubs need to use a minimum of 95%, and then that's going up because of the CBA.
Yes.
Some of these, as I said before, good players, average players, whatever, getting massive pay rises because that's what it takes to get a player out of a club. So you've got that situation where Mackay's coming out, getting paid massive money, which is not that far. Like, okay, Buddy was, 10 years? But it realistically isn't that far off what Buddy was getting for that contract. So people going, how can you compare Mackay and Buddy? Well, Essendon are pretty well valuing Mackay not that far off Buddy on the contract. So, yes, he has to be that.
It's a market value thing, right?
It is.
Let's look cars and COVID as an example. The second-hand car market has gone up incredibly high because of COVID and the availability of players. That's the availability of cars. You know what I mean.
We all know what you mean.
The AFL and tall defenders and tall forwards is the exact same thing. When there's no one available during a trade period, the ones that are available are incredibly expensive. So it doesn't matter, hey, Buddy's here and this is here, blah, blah, blah. Mackay might not be worth that much, but Essendon are going to have to pay that because now they've gone and outwitted 2 other clubs and said, hey, we'll give you the contract that you want, we'll give you what you want, here you go. So that's how much they're paying it, and that's how much he's going to cost.
Corey's saying here, well, Melbourne got pick 3 for Angus Brayshaw when Prawley got burned 1 compensation.
Yeah, exactly. And that was exactly it, because that's where your pick is. So if you know you're losing an absolute superstar, if you've got an inkling that this is going to happen, now it's best for your club to finish lower down the ladder. But then other people are sitting there going, well, I don't want my club to tank, or I don't want to lose, especially if we're a strong club. The thing with Hawthorn at that time, Buddy left, they still actually won a flag.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what are you going to take, Hawks? Would you rather the flag, or would you rather, and how do you then judge, like, how does us or the AFL industry turn around and go, this player's worth pick 1, this player's worth pick 2, 3, and that's why they use the salary and what's paid, because it's too hard, because my opinion compared to Dave's opinion compared to your opinions down there, completely different.
I don't think Dave's got an opinion.
Love you, Dave.
He does.
No,
he's our producer.
But if you look at it though, right? If I'm a team that's bottom of the ladder, let's use North Melbourne for example, right? Let's say Mackay's not worth it. North Melbourne doesn't have that many good players, doesn't have many good A-graders, doesn't, in dire need of good defenders. Now lose like their best key defender that they've had for the last 5 years off. We almost need, given our ladder position, we almost like that pick 3 coming back is a fair pick for us. If it was ended up being, no, you only get pick 19. Well, sorry, like the equation of losing the player to not losing the player, it doesn't work out.
And this is the thing, because and I get people,
and it would almost force a trade every time for an RFA. Because it wouldn't be a fair swap of a pick for a player.
Well, the Players Association wants to bring that more in, so the free agents after 6 years, they don't have these sort of RFAs, and they can and that's the whole idea of extending, say, your Reed situation, these first round picks, 3 years, they then re-sign for another 3. After 6 years, you've done your part, now you've got the option to move on. Yes. I've got no problems with that, but I think the compo needs to be there as a safeguard, because otherwise you'll get the English Premier League situation, where the big clubs will sit there and go, like Geelong, they offer lifestyle, they offer better things for, like, come down, you can live down in Torquay much cheaper than living in Brighton, and we don't have to pay you as much, but we're going to pay all these, you guys will take a bit of a cut, we'll look after you. The other part to it with successful teams is they get looked after way after their contract's finished. And the smart players actually realise this. If we can build a dynasty here, take less money now. Because I talked to Ben and Chris about this. The Queensland boys, like your McRae's, Lappin, Ackermanis, they still do a lot of guest gigs up there. They've been out of the game for 10, 15 years. Yeah. So they're all either in coaching, they're in the media, they do so many guest gigs. Simon Black was doing one again the other night.
Cash converters.
So, ads for as long as, they can. So there's ways for them to earn salary still through footy after they've done, because they've been so successful as individuals and as teams.
Yeah. The AFL needs to come in and just say, cool, if your player's up for contract and it's the end of the season, they're a free agent. That's what needs to happen. Compensation either way, whatever, but you need to be a free agent. Because if your club can't keep you, if they can't re-sign you in the 9 months of an AFL season, then too bad, you're gone. Clubs don't have to work together. You can go and try and poach people. And that would help to free up some of the money problems that a lot of the weaker teams have. Because North Melbourne can come out cool, say, we've got $3 million in the bank. That's 3 $1 million players who, hey, we've spoken to at some point. We don't need to deal with the club. You'll get compensation for your guy leaving, and then we'll be able to get the player that we want.
Well, I think that's the other thing that could be coming in is that whole cap space buying sort of where,
but I mean,
for example,
don't deal with the clubs at all. Just be like, you get the compensation, that's it.
Well, I'd like the AFL to be a bit more transparent about it, and I think that's what the public would like as well.
Yeah.
But you've got this situation where you could see, like, the top clubs, Collingwood might be at the situation, salary cap's getting a bit tight. They just go to Essendon, well, you got $2 million, we'll take $1 million here, take our next couple of picks. And I can see that becoming more of the norm. But then you've got this sort of unfair situation where some clubs are going to be playing with a cap of 8 million, others are going to be playing for 14. But if that helps fast track the rebuild of some of these lower clubs, well, it might be only for a year or two that you're forking out that money, which is no different that's happening at the moment. Yeah. Collingwood, it's funny, where Collingwood actually on top, and they're paying 2 clubs, the Bulldogs and Melbourne. For players to play against them. Yeah. It's which is absolutely unbelievable. More something that happens in the States than here, but yeah.
Globes, how's it going, Global? He says, be careful, Swizz. Dusty is up next season.
I think I'm the one Richmond supporters that are happy to see him go. And I get absolutely crucified by the Richmond for him for putting that up. But it makes sense. It frees up 1.2 million.
Yeah,
and there's the potential to do something with the Gold Coast pick 4. Like every club, we want the pick 4 as well.
You're not going to get pick 4.
Not straight off for Dusty, but if they need points back. So if it's
Classic
Dusty,
Richmond,
yeah. But
nothing.
if it was Dusty and
3-time premiership player.
Dusty and points back coming, through the second round and third round, then you can start talking about pick 4, and I think that's more beneficial for the long term for Richmond than Dusty for one more awesome year.
Damo has a question for you, Jez.
Sure. Go for
As
it, Damo.
North,
Yep.
if the AFL says the contract only triggers pick 19, but we'll make it pick 3, and that's your priority pick, would you take that? That upgrade from a pick 19 to a pick 3?
No, we'll just force Essendon to trade. Like, North Melbourne, if we keep Mackay, cool. We've got a 25-year-old defender.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no need. He's not injured.
Yep.
He's not a 30-year-old
He
player.
has bad knees.
Yeah, but there's
That's
not.
fine.
That's
Half our
it.
players.
You can't say
Joe,
he's got bad knees.
He only has
All
bad knees if he goes to Essendon.
all our players have bad knees already. It's fine.
I think we've got bad hearts is the problem here.
Yeah. I agree with you there. There's not many key defenders running around. You can see why they all getting paid well at the moment. Like Barras, Harris Andrews, Wiedering, Darcy Moore.
Yeah.
Darcy Moore's more than the top 3 paid players in the league.
Yeah.
And that's why, because if you're a young fella, if you're 14, 15 tuning into this and you are already 6'3", 6'4", don't worry about playing key forward anymore. None of this sort of stuff.
Build your muscles.
Build your muscles, become a key defender. That's where the money is at.
Become a ruckman because you'll never leave the AFL.
Well,
you can be the third string ruckman at some club. Jordan Sweets played one AFL game in 4 years, and now he's going off to another club.
Big talk in trade period.
Yeah.
Braden Bruce is the ultimate journeyman.
Playing. He could come back to North Melbourne or back to Melbourne
you either
next year.
if you're that tall, it's ruck. But if you're not, if you've got that and you're a key forward type, go learn how to become a key defender.
Yeah.
Because, geez,
that's
they're in
all
more
it is.
demand than the key forwards at the moment.
100%. Globes is asking your thoughts on the mid-season trade period. Globes, we had a talk about that before.
And I like it. I think it adds a bit more interest to the comp. And if that, I only want it, but if it's a one bye, only 1 week, and that's the week they start the AFLW. So you still got footy on that weekend. They get their clear air. But then that week from the season goes on pause on the Sunday, next game's on the Thursday, and you've got a 4 or 5 day period where trading happens. Bring it on. And then from a Supercoach perspective, that's where
going to screw everyone
well,
up.
no, because that's where I want us to have the wild card week. At which they are considering, and Al and Tim, if you're listening to this, definitely it's getting more and more support. It's great for the EPL, the Fantasy Premier League there. Yeah, wildcard week on that one bye, and it just changed Supercoach. And then the ones who have changed clubs, let's maybe get them in or become relevant for the last 11 weeks of the season.
I would just hate the best player on a bad club to try and jump ship to a team that's actually winning. Because I think that would completely destroy. End of the season, okay, I can understand clubs are trying to formulate what they're going to do, blah, blah, blah. But if you're best key forward, it's
so we say Larky or Oscar Allen. Let's put a name to it.
If Geelong comes along
Sam
and someone's injured and Geelong goes and throws $2 million at Nick Larky to jump ship halfway through the season, I don't see how that's fair for the AFL, but just for the club that's losing the player.
But they have to have that money available.
They A, have to have the money, and B, they...
Yeah, but Essendon had that money
it's
coming
still,
into the
It's
time
still
now.
going to be for picks.
That's less management.
Melbourne had the money.
But you've still got to agree, and the club's still got to agree to the trade. So the trade's going to be... So if it was Larky or Oscar Allen, until the AFL, which they're not going to do, would let you trade 2 years of futures...
Yep.
There's not going to be enough, I think, those teams going to satisfy unless they're trading back. So in Geelong's case, let's just say they were close, which they weren't. But if they were, if you're North, you're not taking anything but taking Sam DeConning back or that. You go, okay, we'll take your best young player if you think this key forward is going to help you win a flag. Yeah. That's where it gets interesting, but because clubs will be there going, we're a chance for the flag's the ultimate goal.
Yes.
This is what you're playing for. So we're a real chance to win here. Do we go out and do it? Do we sell off our future and do what West Coast has done and get their flag, They tried to go again, completely fallen off.
Yep.
If you're a West Coast supporter right now, they're still rocking up. They're happy because, they were
And
successful.
they're not asking for priority picks
they're
either.
not. Yeah, that's right.
Next year.
Yeah.
Next year.
But
Next year. We've established a precedent.
Yeah.
You've got to be shit for 3 years
Yeah,
before you can start
that's right.
asking. 2 years is not enough.
You have to be historically bad. You got to be North Melbourne bad.
If you won a
before
premiership 5 years ago, it doesn't count. Sorry.
in regards to other sort of trade news that's popped up on that, and I know somebody on our panel here continues to message me asking me, what's going on, Swizz? What's the news?
I need the goss.
I
Give
need
me the goss.
Give me the goss. What have you heard?
I want all the goss. Trade period's the best. If you're a North Melbourne supporter,
Trade period's the
trade
best
and draft period are the best times of the year because you can actually get excited. Not much happens for our club during these times. Like maybe we'll get a Griffin Logan and that's our trade period.
Man, we
but
are
at
so
least we actually do
Well,
something. And we can get excited for
This
like
is the
3
time
months.
of year where you've got your best chance for your club to actually see progress and see where they're sort of going with their list.
Yep.
It's not going to be the big one like last year, and I think it'll be bigger next year. I think there's going to be a lot of bit part players that are getting moved on. And we've seen that with Port. It's not the superstars. I think these bit part players are going to come in and play roles for them, no problems. So it's not really the big names, but there's talk about Harms will leave Melbourne. And where, like, he's been linked to Richmond and Sydney. You got James Jordan, St Kilda and Sydney. The Swans are trying to be a bit active here. That's going to obviously take away from Melbourne's depth. And this is where the problem was we talked about before. They start losing those players from 23rd to 30, and Harms and Jordan are in their best 23 as well. So it'd be interesting to see how they fit in. Excuse me. With Goldie, the whole ruck merry-go-round. So Goldie looks like it's to north. Apparently, I don't know if it's true that he's meant for Fremantle. I don't think these Sean Darcy rumours are true, but the news they'll never go away in that until he's signed a long contract. And I'm sure Damo's going to throttle me for bringing that even up. But Liam Henry also from the Dockers looks like he's going to St Kilda. I think that's pretty well confirmed. It's just about what that pick's going to look like. Ginnifan, there's talk about him potentially wanting out of Collingwood for more opportunities.
I don't think he leaves. If he's the sub last week, this week, and they win, he's going to stay. He was relegated to the VFL for half the season.
But that's the problem. But you're still knowing the sub, and you can understand why, because Collingwood, Bo McCreary, you've got Bobby Hill up there, Jamie Elliott, DeGoey. So if there's a club, and the Lynx was my club originally, it was Richmond, because they need a small forward. So it wouldn't surprise me if he gets the right club coming to him, that he'll actually have a look at that option. Because you want to be playing, you want to be locked in. If you're at a club who's got 3 or 4 small forwards, it's going to be it's going to be hard.
All I know is North Melbourne has another 8 players that are currently uncontracted, alongside the 5 that are basically left or have retired. So we're going to be active this trade period. I think we're probably going to take 3 or 4 picks. We've got to lose 2 to the rookie spots that we got before. So we're going to be all your fringe players. We'll get rid of ours. We'll take yours.
Gold Coast is going to be a big player, apart from their pick 4. So they're wanting to trade up, but I think it's going to be hard for them to do that. Everyone wants to trade up, but for the Suns, it's because Jed Walter most likely gets bid on at pick 2, 3. So they'll probably try to throw something at West Coast, but it's probably unlikely. And if that doesn't happen, then it's, okay, how can we turn this into future picks, points as well, and potentially a player? Elijah Hollands, talk about him coming back to Victoria. Chol is the big one as a forward. Now, no superstar, but he did kick 40-odd goals last year. So the Crows have got some interest in him.
He could be the key to the Gold Coast Suns trading out that pick 4 as well. Who's willing to take that money?
But I think
North will take it.
I think there's going to be picks for the points coming back. It's not going to just be like the Bose situation last year. I'd really love him back. Yeah, it was back to. I'd love to see him back at the Tigers.
Future third,
So I think there'll be a little bit. Too many clubs getting carried away with what. Thinking the Bose situation is going to happen again, and it's not. But there still will be some movement there. You've got Cozzy from, as in Jacob Kaczynski from Hawthorn, wanting to move to Richmond as the key forward.
Swoop Luke,
look at him. Swoop.
He's gone full black and white.
He's gone full Collingwood
full nuff. Oh, hope you guys lose tonight so bad. Come on, Giants, please, Giants.
So that's another one with Kaczynski looking like going to Hawthorn and replaced Riewoldt there.
You mean Richmond?
Richmond. They replaced Riewoldt up in the forward line. Will Hayward's been linked to Adelaide. So, again, a lot of these players are in club's best 22, but we're sort of talking from the 11th best player to the 22nd, 23rd best player.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a lot of that sort of movement to come, which, it's not some clubs will be starting to position themselves next year because there's a lot of good players that are coming out of contract, especially a few Bulldogs there who have links back down to WA. Well, Bailey Smith, who is not the WA link, but English and Norton are the ones I'm more referring to. But yeah, Bailey Smith, the Bulldogs, fantastic, fascinating year coming up for them because it's going. If they drop off the cliff, some of these players might want to out, and so I can see clubs trying to stockpile some salary cap because if these players do come available and sort of go hard at the one that continues to come up, and it's come up a few times, and our fellow Saints panelists might hate me for also bringing this one up, but Jack Steele continues name. He's come up with Cal Toomey, Damien Barrett. There's a couple of big names in AFL media who constantly are bringing his name up. And I don't think it's been picked up by some of the other, even social media.
Association with which club?
But no club's been. But just the fact that they've brought them up as somebody potentially that might be looked at, that would be huge. That would turn the trade period on its head.
North Melbourne loves players with bad knees, so Jack Steele come to our club.
I think if he's leaving, it's for a successful club.
Steele to North Melbourne.
That's not freaking happening. That's not happening. But yeah, so that might be one to watch because those two wouldn't have not just thrown that out without both hearing something.
Yeah. True.
It should be fun.
Damo, Sean Darcy looks like he's eaten a few trainers in his ankle rehab. Gladly hold on to him, but whoever gets him will be putting him through fat camp.
I think the Darcy thing comes in about what happens with English next year. Like if English does start to go, well, I want to go back to Perth.
Insane.
West Coast of Freo, it's going to be an absolute huge bidding war over that.
As well, like Jackson, I think one of the big problems with Freo at the moment is that Jackson is so good. And he was partly why he left Melbourne was because he's so good.
Yep.
He's almost keeping Sean Darcy out of being that number one ruck. It's real competition there. So if Darcy comes in and he's worth, you'd think a top 10 or like top 11 pick, hey, Compo from the AFL. If he's worth that pick, then do you offload that, load up for next year and say, hey, cool, we've got a lot of money that we can throw at whoever, and we've already got, VFL Ruckman covering the spot. We've got our main Ruckman already. Sean Darcy's not great in the forward line, so someone's looking for that kind of player.
But we haven't heard anything from Geelong, and Geelong have the link to Darcy because that's where he's originally from. So if it's not this year, that could be one next year, especially if the Geelong are going to lose some, bit part players this year. Yep. The other one I didn't mention was Shane McAdam. He'll end up at Melbourne as well. Again, I don't know if that's the saviour that they're really looking for in the forward line, but again, it's these players, fringe players. But then we say that, and some people would have looked at maybe Blake Acres kind of being in that fringe. I know he was best 22 at Fremantle.
That was a massive mistake by them.
Yeah, but that was an absolute bargain, and look how well he's playing.
Even Lockie Hunter too, right? Lockie Hunter's
had a really good year. Really good year.
Yeah.
Really solid year. I think that's underrated because we obviously look at all the superstars like your Dunkley Tarantos and that who moved and it was huge movements last year. But Bobby Hill was a great example, as you brought it up before. He has helped Collingwood immensely in that forward line.
Absolutely.
And he's going to play a huge role tonight. So some of these players can be the key to just unlocking because there's positions that need to be filled.
Yep.
And that's why I think Bomber supporters are excited at the moment because it's the first time they haven't just gone another midfielder.
Yep.
That would have not surprised me. No, we're not getting Mackay. We're just going to go out and get Jack Steele because we need another midfielder. But it's trying to fill gaps on your list. So
I think we're more excited about the gap that we've had off the field.
Yeah,
with the person who's selecting these players.
That's right.
I think we're the ones that have made the biggest off-field move. This is the start of a new era.
And then it comes down to the draft after that. So the AFL Commission meets on Monday.
Yep.
So then they'll let us know what they're going to do with North Melbourne. And then from there, it's just, I think we'll get a better idea what clubs are thinking as it's coming in. And anything can happen now with the trade period, where we used to sort of have a real good idea of what the order was probably going to be, top 10 leading into the draft. But because picks can be changed on the night, there's a real possibility West Coast hold on to one through the trade period.
It's
think
been reported that they're going to just keep and go for Harley Reid.
Yeah, but I think even through the trade period, they'll keep one no matter what. But then let's just wait until draft night, and then because maybe other clubs start going well, because how many deals get done in those last hour and the unreal. So maybe if a club can somehow, and after the trade period's done, you can still go and trade picks.
Correct.
So a club might start getting creative with other clubs and going, okay, and maybe it is, for example, the Suns, and they somehow acquire another pick and go, well, or they sell that pick 4 to a team that just happened to have another, like we talked about it before, where if St Kilda, for example, 12 and 13, if somehow they were to offload something to get their future to get pick 4 as well, all of a sudden they're going to West Coast, well, we've got 4, 12, 13, what else can we give you? Can we give you a few, like how much of the farm are we selling to get up to 1? And I think there'll be those sort of discussions leading into draft night.
I have been on my phone a lot, guys. Don't worry.
No, I love it, mate.
It's because I've been just making sure and seeing whether or not there's been any changes to the final team for tonight. We're in now the last 15 minutes before the game starts. There have been no changes. The teams are still as they are. So really exciting. 15 minutes to go. Can't wait to see this game. Nick Dacos, obviously the big in for the Pies, and Taylor Adams is out with his injury. The Giants are still unchanged.
I really hope the Giants win. I don't want to deal with you, Chris. Yeah, you're probably watching this right now before you tune off the game, mate. I don't want to hear you bragging. There's nothing worse.
Nick Dacos is one of the biggest ins in the history of the game, but Taylor Adams is actually a massive out.
I think he is, but they've got probably the coverage through Crisp, Tom Mitchell. They've actually got the depth in that midfield.
Tom Green's better, though.
Oh, they are. Yeah, the GWS guys are A plus midfielders, but these Collingwoods are sort of B plus. They all combine well, play a role. Even Pendle, Pendle's a superstar, and me calling Pendle's a B player now, but it's just because he's 35, 36. That's not taken away from Scott Pendlebury people, but there's they've got a lot of those guys they work really well together as a unit, and that's where the interest is going to be. It's just such a fascinating.
He just doesn't have the pace, though.
But they've got probably more that they can rotate through than what the Giants do. But the Giants' quality is better.
I mean, the Giants can put Kelly in there as well. Yeah. They've got Cogs rotating through there.
Yeah, but it's Green, Cogs, Kelly,
Ward.
Yeah, and Ward's playable. But then Collingwood's just so much deeper. But it's not the superstar talent that those Giants are.
And they don't have Briggs either. They don't have Briggs.
You keep going on about that.
I love Briggs. I have a man crush on Briggs. What else is there? Pick 11. Has Jez been on the Devil's Lettuce?
Mate, it's reported.
Devil's Lettuce? I haven't heard that one before. Damn, I love that one.
Go and check, mate.
Dockers will be asking for that nice pick 2 or 3 as a starting point, he says.
Nah.
True footy? Is this the true footy? This is the real true footy. Oh my God, this is unbelievable. I'm sorry, I'm just starstruck.
Bit of a fanboy here, Joe.
Yes, very much so. Yes, massive respect. Recently discovered the channel. It's good stuff. Oh, be honored. That's mad. Honestly, you gotta get on. You gotta get on, mate. We'd love to have you. And Jez, you gotta get off the tins. Damo's telling you gotta get off the tins. Too many tins. No more Jim Beam for you. I'm gonna take this away from you.
It's empty anyway.
Damn it. Too late. But yeah. So I'm really excited for tonight. Yeah. I'm obviously, the game's not even 13 minutes away from now. Both of you guys going on Collingwood. I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer in the Giants and what they've done. I think Kingsley's got a great system. I think the Giants genuinely believe that they can beat anybody on their day. They're used to being outnumbered. They're used to going everywhere. They've been saying it all week and even last week, that they can't wait to get back to the MCG because the MCG is their home, and they play the MCG really well. They play like Collingwood, they play like Richmond. They can find space where you think there isn't, and they use the width of the MCG perfectly. I think this game is going to go down the wire, absolutely, but I just have enough faith in the Giants to get up. And it's very hard to tip against your head when it
Yeah.
comes to Carlton versus Brisbane up there at the Gabba. They're really banged up.
I think it really comes down to what happens with Darcy Moore. I know we've talked about it off air, on air, kind of in the shower, whatever. If Darcy Moore gets found out, then he's in a lot of trouble, and then Collingwood's in a lot of trouble. If not, it's going to be a really, really interesting game.
Yep. All right, I think that'll do it. We'll go watch the footy like everybody else.
Beautiful. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It has been an absolute pleasure, as always, catching you guys live, having this interaction. Please stay tuned. We're doing this all the time because we love to do it. And we have proper footy chats. It's been your boy Joe.
And Big J,
Swizz.
And we will see you all in the next one. Stay tuned, guys.
catch
Thanks,
up.
boys.